Broadcasting live to tape from beautiful Monmouth County, New Jersey. We're on a clear night. 7 off tracks and 3 hits from behind equal a teleportation into space. It's the RutgersKev Show.
Kevin O'Keefe gets the win at Charlotte.
Kevin O'Keefe is going to take his first win and only his third start in the series. Beautiful job for Kevin O'Keefe.
Gonna troll me forever.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Sean, take a look at his on his screen there. Very appropriate today. Oh boy.
I'm Matt Malone. I stream Iracing, but when I'm not racing, I'm listening to the RutgersKev Show with your host, RutgersKev.
How does he have 38 viewers?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the RutgersKev Show. I'm joined with Randy right off the bat this week. We got a lot to talk about. Let's get right to it. So, Empty Box got disqualified from an Iracing NASCAR Series race. This is what happens when you run the Iracing NASCAR Series, Randy. Boy, this really seems like old news. This seems like old news to me because I did this in 2013 when I got disqualified in Martinsville, when I got hit from behind 4 times. I have a whole series of videos on my channel about this.
I remember that.
I mean, you know, so I do a whole... I basically said exactly what an Empty Box says in his video. And I basically get called a whiner, right? Empty Box does a video, and it's like a 7-page thread on Reddit. Right?
Yeah, it's like nuclear war, which thankfully, I mean, we're talking about all this iRacing news, but we should say this, that Kevin and I are talking like the most boring topics ever to talk about on a day where North and South Korea are talking about ending the Korean War, and Barbara Bush died, and there's all this other stuff going on, and we're going to talk about iRacing stuff, but... Yeah,
Michael Cohen's secret client. That's relative to me.
Michael Cohen. Let me just go to the front page of Reddit and just, you know, McConnell not being allowed to vote, and baseball players saying they're playing too much baseball, and apparently Nova Scotia has filled its public freedom and information archive with citizens' private data. All sorts of less than relevant things going on. So we'll talk about Empty Box.
Well, this is an iRacing podcast, but we're not talking about Empty Box. We're talking about the incident system. Empty Box is entitled, of course, to his opinions, and he's right on a lot of things, but I do find it interesting that these videos always come out right after somebody gets DQ'd. There's always threads in the forums. There's always videos on this part of the year. You know, we go to Martinsville, we go to Bristol. Richmond sometimes is a real disaster with those setups in the past, especially off the exit of 2 and how tight it is off 3 and 4. I mean, the entrance of 3 and 4. So if you get these restarts, you just get wreck after wreck after wreck. Once it gets spread out, it's fine. But anyway, so we go through this stretch in the Iracing NASCAR Series, and then people start getting DQ'd, and then guess what? Now the complaints start. Now people are pissed. You definitely notice a pattern. But what I want to talk about in general is just feelings about the incident system in general. And people have brought up some really good points in the forums about, like, why is there a incident system? And they bring up specifically the Le Mans series. The endurance series was 6 hours, and they were trying to decide which was the proper incident limit. So there was a whole discussion about what's a proper incident limit for 6 hours, and they settled on 25 at first. So for those of you who don't play iRacing or don't watch any streams, first off, welcome. Second off, okay, I'll tell you how the incident system works, okay? If you go off track at any point, if half your car goes off the racing servers, that's 1x, okay? If you get contacted with another car that's minor, it's a 0x. But anything that happens as a result of that, you get the incident points for, okay? So let's say you get 0x because you minorly scrape a car, but then that car goes off the racing track. Now you get a 1x. Okay, if you spin out or you lose control of your car, that's a 2x. If you have
a 2x, I thought it was if you bump someone and they have an incident. I thought it was just an automatic 2.
It's a 2.
I don't think I've ever gotten a 1 through car contact. It's either a 0 or a 2 or a 4.
You can definitely get a 1 if you knock them off the track. Anything that anything that happens right after you minorly bump somebody.
Whoever's in front of me in my next road course race while I test out this hypothesis.
I mean, same thing. If you bump somebody and then they spin out but don't hit anything, then you get a 2x.
Right.
Okay. same thing. So, but I'm saying anything that happens after you hit somebody. Okay, if you hit anything in a major contact, either a car or a wall, that's a 4x. Okay. Now, the thing about the iRacing incident system is that it's no fault. So in Martinsville in 2013, still bitter. If you're slow in the middle of the corner because you want to get a good exit because you're actually a good driver, and somebody barrels it in there full speed and don't worry about exit speed and hits you in the middle of the corner from the rear, and you get a 4x, that's not your fault. That's the guy that hit you's fault, but you still get a 4x. So if that happens to you 4 times, boom, you have 16 X's and you're about to be disqualified. Especially in 2013 when the incident limit for those races were 17. Now I think they're 22. So it could definitely lead to some issues where you did nothing wrong and you get hit from behind 4 times and now you're DQ'd. And when you're DQ'd, you're automatically taken off the track. So if you're it doesn't matter if you're the last car, a lap down, or anything like that. You're just going to finish last of all the cars that are running right then. So it's going to really hurt if you're running only 1 race per week, or if you care about SR, which is another topic that we're going to get to, because why would you? But anyway, that's how SR works, okay? So
I think there should be a little bit of context, though, in towards you talking about your race in Martinsville. This isn't a system that always existed, and when Kevin is talking about this,
it had just started, yeah.
At Martinsville, I remember when they updated this because it didn't come from a week 13. It came from what I remember, what I recall, basically in the middle of a build or in the middle of a week, excuse me, and. From what I remember back then, Kevin was one of the people screaming the loudest on the forums that this incident limit wasn't going to work properly. It wasn't going to be, wasn't going to fix the issue it's supposed to fix, which we'll talk a little bit more about that in depth a little bit later on. The reason I find it so funny is the fact that Kevin was one of the people screaming about this, and Kevin at the time was probably the biggest streamer. Malone, I don't think, was around then.
He was just starting, but no.
Yeah, he was pretty. I think Jay Plays is about the biggest at that time, from what I recall.
Hey,
and then
I was the
it may
biggest.
have been you. Yeah, and very well might have been.
Which isn't saying much compared to what levels are, what people are now. But we're talking in the infant stages.
Yeah, the infant. Yeah. But so you had one of the biggest streamers at the time who was adamantly opposed to this change, which had been discussed for about a week or so on the forums, if I recall. Then it was implemented, and the very first NASCAR iRacing Series race that happened afterwards, may have been the same day the build release, Kevin was disqualified at Martinsville while streaming, and it caused. I mean, this is the 4th or 5th thread of this type I've seen pop up.
When I was hit from behind 4 times, not my fault. Yes. All in the middle of the corner.
They weren't even big incidents.
No, there were nothing.
That's as we go on about this, as we go a little bit deeper into this, that's one of the things we'll bring up and talk about. Whether it works, why it doesn't work, or why it does or doesn't work as we go into this. But I thought there should be some context there about why I'm giggling every time Kevin mentions that DQ at Watkins or at Barnesville, because it just makes me laugh.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I do believe that's the only time I've ever been DQ'd. I mean, I would have to go and look at my results. I'm not going to do it right now. I can't think of another time I've been DQ'd. So, but we're going to talk about, I mean, all this is going to approach, because there's a lot of times I came close to being DQ'd and I altered my driving accordingly. Okay, so we just saw me run into the back of somebody on the video. So that was a 4X, guys. Don't do that. Don't do what I just did on the video there. Okay, so rip audio listeners.
No, don't do that.
No, we were at Coda. We were in the tight little chicane there in the stadium section. Anyway, that's not important. So, what was I saying? Okay, so they decided on 25 incidents in a 6-hour race. Okay, this is what they came up with in their infinite wisdom. Okay, Randy, just your initial thoughts as somebody that's a high-level road racer. I put high-level in quotes. Okay, what would 25 incidents in a 6-hour race? Go.
The incident limit is not an adequate measurement of a team or driver's safe driving in a race, and there is no such thing as a quote-unquote high incident count.
But just 25 in a 6-hour race. That's not. That's not sustainable, especially in a track like Coda or Spa.
Well, that's my point. If you're gonna pick a number, first of all, a number, you can't pick a number because all the tracks are so different in terms of their I guess to get it out of the way, my opinion of the safety rating is that it does not work as intended. The system, as we currently have it, worked fine before it was implemented, and there's been multiple situations along the line where iRacing and iRacing staff either disagree on why the incident limit was implemented and how it affects. There's also been implementations of it that show that iRacing's understanding of it fundamentally doesn't work. So, for example...
Well, that's what I want to talk about, because their understanding of it is what affected what they finally came up with. But yeah, what was your example?
But I mean, if you're talking, say a 1 hour race at, just the iRacing Le Mans Series as an example, you can't over a 1 hour race hold a track like Spa the same level of severity as the way you say treat a track like Sebring or treat a track like Monza. It's just so many easy one-offs to get at Spa, especially when you get damage. And now this is for me as a GT driver, someone who would have issues with potentially getting incidents from LMP1 cars. I don't necessarily think someone racking up a bunch of 4Xs and getting disqualified is really that great of a system, because you're thinking 24 incidents. That person can potentially kill 6 GT cars in a race. You're talking a third of a GT class.
Right.
That's a third of a category. Potentially this person can end. But, you talk about a track like Spa, 17 1Xs over a 1 hour race, 25 over a 1 hour race. You're likely going to be doing somewhere in the realm of about 30 laps in a 1 hour race at Spa. An incident per lap at Spa, especially if you get some aero damage. Now, granted, if you get some aero damage, you're going to have even less than that 25 incidents. If the car gets a little bit tight, and I actually had this happen to me in a 24-hour race at Spa in a GT3 car. This is when me and Josh, we tried to do the 24-hour race by ourselves. And when Josh was in the car, he got a little bit of front nose damage on our Mercedes, and the car had a lot of push. Whenever we got in behind another car, the aero push was just incredible. And whenever I spent a decent, if I went through a Rouge, or if I went through Pouhon, or if I went through any of those high downforce sectors of the racetrack, I would try to keep the car at speed, because in clean air it was still sort of manageable. You can more or less drive the car the same. But I'd get just enough push to where I'd get a 1 on the exit of some of those corners. And I think I had somewhere near the end of my, we were doing 4, nearly 5 hour stints. We were doing quads, full tanks of fuel in the GT3 car, hour and 10-minute long stints. We were in the car for a long time. I think near the end of my stints, I racked up somewhere like 60, 70 incidents. And, I wasn't driving dangerously. I wasn't putting anyone at risk. And, even using Spa as an example, there's parts of that racetrack where it's safer to take a 1X than it is to try to fight the car into not getting a 1X. And the example I'm going to use for that is Blanchimont. So,
there's a lot of tight corners in general where if you overturn the wheel, you on throttle, you can easily spin out.
Well, it's not even necessarily just that, but it's high speed corners where it's an issue where you have a risk of potentially high centering the car. And there's a handful of places on various tracks that are like this. You have Spa, you have the exit of Blanchimont, you have Suzuka, the exit of the second Degner before you go under the bridge. You can high center the car on that curb. There's one at Sebring where through the sector of track called Bishop, you can high center the car on a couple of curbs there where but at Spa and at Suzuka, I'll use it, mostly Spa. So through Blanchimont, you get on that exit curb as you track out. If you hit that curb just a little bit wrong and you try to keep the car on the racing surface, you end up spinning out. However, when you're talking about a 1 hour race or a 24-hour race, you as a driver, what risk are you going to take? Are you just going to take a 1X? Or are you going to take potentially ending your race and getting a 4 and spinning off the track? You're going to just, it's safer to take the 1. And I've been experienced in 24-hour races and endurance races at Le Mans, or at Spa, where I intentionally take that. I end up in a situation, maybe I lift a little bit too late, or I don't quite get the turn-in point late. It is a slight mistake, but not a big enough one to where I even want to risk potentially ending my race. So I'm just going to take the 1X, not because it's faster, but because it's safer and it alleviates the risk of getting thrown into the wall on the left. And for that reason, I don't think the incident limit... I like the way the incident system works. I think the incident system is fair. The incident limit is not.
Well, so they're talking, so there was minor uproar in the forums. Let's just talk about the Le Mans Endurance Series. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, so the 1 hour race, there's a 17 incident limit, which is the same incident limit you get a 25-minute sprint race. But let's just put that aside. Okay, so they came up with, okay, they used to have 25-minute race, 17 sounds good. You've got a half distance oval race, 22 sounds good. You got a 1 hour multi-class race with LMP1 cars, 17 sounds good. You got a 6 hour one with driver swaps, 25. Right? So there was a minor uproar about that. That's 1x every 15 minutes. Yeah. You know, rip.
Yeah, that's
okay. But okay, so Tony Gardner was very quick to respond in the forums and then said, "Yeah, sure, you know, okay, if people say 25 is too low, let's make it 50." Just kind of arbitrarily threw out 50, right?
Right.
And then that kind of brought the argument as to be like, well, if you're making it 50, why do we have an incident limit at all? What is 50 really doing? You know,
Yeah,
just to bring up your other point, okay? So now we have an LMP1 causing 4X's, I can't do math, 13 times?
12.
So, 12,
13 to get DQ'd.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It would be 13 GT cars taken out before they get DQ'd. That's
about what quarter? How many cars can run in that series? 60. So you're talking, 13 cars. I mean, you're talking 20% of the field.
So if the whole point is to get these dangerous drivers off the track, it's like that's not going to work. Okay.
Well,
so that leads to the discussion about like, well, what is the theory behind the incident limit? If the incident limit is designed to get dangerous drivers off the track, why is it 50? Okay. So why even have an incident limit at all? Well, Tony Gardner responds that we discovered in the past, and he's right on this, let me point this out. We discovered in the past, if we don't have an incident limit, teams will abuse it. And he brought up like the 24 hours of Daytona when you went through the kink in the backstretch, the bus stop. What's that called there in the backstretch? Bus stop. Okay. Yeah. So right. So when they went through the bus stop, when they exited the bus stop, they would get an X on purpose because it's faster. And
it's not. It's actually not in that part of the racetrack.
Okay. To the top teams, it was obviously faster because they did it.
No, it's not. As someone
maybe it's safer then.
Quote unquote. No, it's not even safer. It's actually less safe to take the 1X there. And the thing is that when you get a 1X through the bus stop, it typically comes with a slowdown. There's very few tracks
they made the slowdown tighter. We're saying like in 2013 and stuff. I mean, don't make me pull up the results.
I was in the top split of that race. My teammates won that race.
Well, they were dirty cheaters that cut the bus stop. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, Auntie is indeed. Auntie and Joel are dirty cheaters.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, of course. As a reputation.
Yep, that New World Sim Sport reputation. Empty boxes on New World Sim. It's all coming full circle.
Mm-hmm. Right. But anyway, yeah. So they said when we didn't have an incident limit, people took advantage of it, and he's right. People did take advantage of it. You would have races where people. In 24-hour races, they would have like 170 incidents, even more, 230.
More than that.
Yeah. Well, Spa, 24 hours of Spa, 24 hours of Spa was crazy.
24 hours of Le Mans that Neo just did. I think there was a team that had 600.
Yeah, well, I don't. They have their own rules on that, so. See, now you're gonna make me look this up. So. Now I'm looking it up. So now, okay, filibuster, Randy.
I'm filibustering, so
you're good at that. Now you're blocked. Now I put you on.
For those who are unaware, the Korean War is coming to an end after about 70 years, thanks to our Lord and Savior Condoleezza Rice. He's been able to sanction a peace movement between the two countries, and now the Banana Republic of Zanzibar will be able to live in peace, knowing that it will not get destroyed by the StarCraft 2 professionals that reside in South Korea. Was that politically accurate?
No.
Well, close enough.
All right, I can't. I'm not going to spend the time to look it up right now. Okay, but
yes, there are teams and drivers that will abuse the incident system.
So there's got to be a limit to stop the abuse. Okay, so what are we doing here? Are we having an incident limit to stop abuse? Are we having an incident limit to keep safe drivers? It's like it doesn't. They don't know what they're doing. And I'm not saying that they don't know what they're doing, but I'm saying they don't have. They need like a mission statement. They need like the incident limit is what it is because X, and then everything needs to be around that. Okay, so if the incident system, not even limit, if the incident system is to say that you need to establish yourself to be a clean driver so you can get an A license so you can drive the top cars, then that's what they need to do. And right now that's not even close to what it is, because on the road side, the top car is the F1 car, which nobody drives. Okay, so let's just take the F1 car out. Okay,
Yep.
so let's make it the LMP1 car. Okay, you need a B license for the LMP1 car. Okay, so again, you're not meeting your mission statement. If your mission statement is you need to establish to be a safe driver so you can get your A license, you can drive the top car on the oval side. Well, that's the Cup car. Okay, everybody drives the Cup car. You need a D 4.0 to race that 5 times per week in fixed and 4 times per week in open. So you need a D 4.0 to race that 9 times in the Iracing NASCAR series. So I mean, if that is what their mission statement is, they're not meeting it. Okay, and I'm not even saying that they should like make the Iracing NASCAR series A only, because I think that's a stupid idea, because they're bringing the Iracing NASCAR series is what brings in customers. Okay, my channel was the most popular when I ran the Iracing NASCAR series because people stumble upon iRacing and they go, "Hey, what's this?
Yeah,
this
people are
is
NASCAR
cool."
fans.
Right, people are NASCAR fans. They will they want to sign up. They're running a business. It's an Iracing NASCAR series. It's not doesn't mean anything. It's not the World Championship. Okay, let people have fun. That's what have the road to pro be A only, because that has mean something. That is teeth to it. Let people have fun. I'm okay with letting people have fun.
On topic of the mission statement, not only do they not have one, but there's been conflicting posts from staff about how it's actually used. You know, someone posted a couple quotes in that thread, not necessarily from people who had actually responded in that thread, but there's been quotes from staff that the staff says, hey, we're one person, like Tony says, the incident limit is for X.
Right.
And person Y, I think the other example in that was actually Nim. So the person who does the stewarding, the person who responds to your protests, this is someone who should kind of have an understanding of how the incident limit is utilized, why it's there. And it could be that NIMS is, sort of the reason it was implemented. He says, no, it's not for that. It's not necessarily in contradiction directly to Tony. Someone who had suggested the same thing, that incident limit is not for X, it is actually for Y. So there's already, not only do they not have a mission statement, but there's sort of this fundamental disagreement that they already have, which just causes all sorts of problems, in my opinion. That it's, there's a system in place that was added 5 years ago now, and it just seems like they're more or less keeping it around because it was implemented and not removing it because it was implemented. So whether or not it actually helps, that's sort of could be up for debate. But on the topic of, when we didn't have an incident limit on these endurance races, talking about the Endurance Le Mans series, teams abused the off-track system. So then how come for the past 4 years, none of the endurance races have had an incident limit?
Oh, because they finally came around to their senses and said, hey, we need to do something about this.
It took them 4 years?
Well, hey, sometimes it does take iRacing 4 years. But then what you were saying is, and there is a disconnect between what the devs say and what the people are saying. Because, like, Matt posts his Bristol video, okay? I think it's fair to say that Matt's driving should not have gotten him DQ'd. Okay, I think that's a pretty, I don't think that's a controversial statement. That Matt was driving so
I haven't actually seen it, so
it's not. I mean, he got in accidents. In hindsight, you could have said, "Well, maybe you should have went up the track, or maybe you should have went." But
right.
It's very clear to say he wasn't being a dangerous driver, right? Where he needed to be removed from the track. Okay, so Matt posts his video.
We're talking about this. I've recently been DQ'd.
Well, I was going to talk about that too. So me when I almost got DQ'd, but Matt. That's a non-controversial statement. Matt was not driving unsafely, okay? And we all know Matt, he's not an unsafe driver, okay? So, but Matt gets kicked off the game because it is an incident limit, okay? So Matt posts that race on his Bristol race, then in a separate video makes a 17-minute rant about the incident limit. Okay, so Tyler Hudson, who is the community manager for Iracing, he works for Iracing, and he's supposed to be the person that reaches out to the community. Okay, he leaves a comment on Empty Box's video that says I'm paraphrasing here, and Randy, if you have it in front of you, I'm not sure because it's in the thread. He basically says that the incident limit is working because if you got 22 X's, then you deserve to be DQ'd. What? I mean, you look at the video, so you can look at that video, and then you can say that he deserved to be DQ'd because he got 22 X's. You know, he basically says if somebody gets 22 X's, then they deserve to be DQ'd, and then he puts a smiley face on the end.
It
What?
could have been a cheeky troll, but
he's a dev for iRacing. He's not, why is he trolling? I do believe
I don't think the staff. No, I don't hold the staff to the same standard. I don't mind someone like Tyler potentially trolling or poking jokes at people, especially at Matt, because Matt, if anyone that needs to be harassed, is definitely Matt.
Well, maybe he was kidding. Maybe his intention was to say he didn't deserve to be DQ'd. But why say anything? Maybe that's what the smiley face means. Maybe the smiley face meant. Maybe the smiley face meant, hey, look, we know you didn't mean to. We know you shouldn't have been kicked off the track or something like that. Maybe that's what the smiley face at the end means. But
the other thing to think about is, and now this actually comes from a video about Billy Strange, and this is on topic with this new dirt stuff. So right now in the dirt oval pro qualifiers, so like the World of Outlaws and I presume the late models, I'm an open wheel guy, and the video that I watched that Billy Strange did, for those who don't know who Billy is, he used to work with Inside Sim Racing back in the past, and he drove sprint cars in real life. And he basically did the first couple rounds and got fed up with some of the issues that we've talked about. In that championship, the incident limit is 25. And for those who are unaware, incident limits do not carry over from heat races. So much like on a road race, if you get a 2X or, if you spin out in qualifying on the roadside or on NASCAR or whatever, you don't carry those incidents into the race. Well, it's the same way in the heat racing format on ovals and on road courses. So if you get a 4X in a heat race, be it Red Bull Global Rallycross, be it World of Outlaws, whatever the case may be, that 4X does not carry to the feature. However, 25 incident limit on dirt is not really a 25 incident limit. It's closer to 50 because on dirt, the actual incidents are cut by half. So the severity. So there's also, Kevin talked about it in terms of getting into contact. So a loss of control is not a 2X, and a heavy car contact is not a 4X, it's a 2X. And a loss of control, I believe, is actually just a 1X. So on the dirt side right now, 30-lap sprint race, sprint car race, feature event, you start from 0, 3 caution laps or so per yellow, 30-lap race, 10 incidents 10 incidents would basically be enough to go from initial green flag to checker flag without running a single race under green flag conditions. You actually cannot get disqualified from a World of Outlaws Pro Series qualifying race right now. It's mathematically impossible unless you cause wrecks under yellow, which pretty much never happens. Most people are at least that competent. And even then, they're only going to generally get involved with 1. You'd have to get a 2X. What? It'd have to be 15 laps in a row. You have to get a 2X to get disqualified in the Dirt World Oval World Championship qualifiers right now. So they have this an incident limit that in essence isn't even a limit. Because what's it limiting? Is there anyone that's actually really been disqualified on the dirt oval side yet? Like, I don't know if I've actually seen that been a thing.
I don't think there's enough laps to even get disqualified.
Yeah, you could maybe get it in some of the late model stuff, because late models and modifieds in real life, they do some pretty long races, and there's a couple that are pretty long in the sim. They run, closer to, I think they're 40, 50 laps. I think they're 40 in the late models.
Yeah, but if you need 15 spins, you're saying, so you spin, caution. Now there's 5 laps under yellow. You spin, caution, there's 5 laps under yellow.
Yeah, it just doesn't happen. So the incident limit is there, but it, in essence, isn't doing anything. Now, that's not, as someone, like you said, I don't like the incident limit just because I don't think it does what it's intended. For me, if the intention, and for the record, the explanation when the incident limit was first introduced, the way it was sold to the community was as a way to get dirty drivers out of your sessions. Okay, if someone racks up this many, the thought process was, if someone racks up this many incidents, they are a nuisance, they are not doing good things in that session, and they need to be gotten off the track. That was why it was sort of sold the way it was. And, the bottom line is that over the years, that one, like me and Kevin have said, sort of iRacing's definition explanation of why it's there has become very fluid and has expanded beyond that. And two, there's these, like I just said with the World of Outlaw Championship, you can't even do that as it is. So, and three, isn't that what the protest system is for?
Yeah, and exactly. So they have conflicting. They don't have a mission statement behind it. I pulled up the Tyler Hudson's comments and other comments made by the staff. So I just wanted to get it clear. So Tyler Hudson's comment was actually on the Bristol video, not on the rant. So I got that wrong. So we actually saw what happened to Matt. And his comment was, I think if you get enough incidents to be DQ'd, which is a really high number, it works as it should. Just my opinion. Smiley face. Mm-hmm. What? And so then Nim Cross says, the incident system is not put in place to keep those who want to destroy races from doing so. That actually makes sense, because if it was put in place, the incident limit wouldn't be so high. That's what the protest system is for. Okay? So I would agree with what Nim said. Okay. And then Tony Gardner said, really, to start, the idea is to pull that, quote, crazy guy out of the race who ruins it, or for someone that went off the deep end. He's saying the incident limit is not really intended to yank a guy that had a couple of crashes, which might even be caused by someone else. So what Tony says directly contradicts what Nim says. It's just, and I'm not saying I'm in agreement there should be a incident limit, because I'm going to explain. At COTA, I raced COTA a lot in preparation for the major series. Okay. So there was a race where I had 16 incidents, and there was a half hour left in the race, and they were all off tracks. Right. So this was in the Le Mans series. So there's a half hour of the race went by, and I have 16 incidents. There's a half hour left. Right. So I knew if I got another off track, I would be disqualified. And you know what I did? I backed my corners up. Right. And I drove better, and my lap times actually improved. I was having a lot of trouble on turn 19. I was running wide there a lot. And I was like, okay, well, if I run wide there, I'm going to be disqualified. I better back my quarter entry up. So it actually made me a better driver. It actually made me a safer driver. And I would agree the incident system in general, with points and your license and all that, makes you a better driver, because there's consequences to your actions. How many times, for how little we care about the license system, I'm A in both licenses, by the way, but if I went down to B, I wouldn't care, because I can still drive everything I want. And in fact, at Oval, if I went down to D, I still wouldn't care, because, like I said, just what I need to get iRacing NASCAR series, right? So it doesn't matter. But at the same time, every time I get an X, I'm like, oh, another X, right? So it's and this is what Empty was saying in his video. It's kind of like a mind trick. It's kind of like that one X doesn't matter, but then when you get it, you're like, so it makes you a better driver. So I'm in agreement that the incident system is something that's good. It's something that's good. This is a good thing to have in the game. It's right. Just maybe the incident limit has to be
not properly implemented, or
it just has to be like I always feel like, though, that we repeat ourselves in this whole show, right? Maybe not this episode, the whole show, the whole series. They need a mission statement, and then they need to follow it. And if that's what if the mission statement is to promote safe driving, then go down that route. If the system is there to keep your license level, then make the license level stricter or do something else, right? Like, why does, and I know the answer to this is a rhetorical question, the Camel series does not have a incident limit. Did you know that, Randy?
No, I actually didn't.
Yeah,
I presume those drives are just so good that none of them ever rack up 17 incidents. It's never a problem, right?
Well, because the car is so difficult to drive, both cars, and then the participation is so low that they don't want to discourage.
Any of the cars easy to drive?
Well, I've only practiced at Daytona, and after practice,
I don't mean just Camel. I mean universally.
I misunderstood what you were saying.
I've never driven a cup car and been like, "Wow, this is easy." I've never buzzed the GT3 car at the limit up and over Mount Panorama and said, "Wow, this is easy." I've never buzzed an Indy car around, and I know we don't have it in the sim, but it's still relevant. Buzzed an Indy car around Long Beach and said, "Wow, this is easy."
Well, the turbo lag, I practiced a lot for the major series, and I still had like 3 self spins because the turbo lag is crazy.
The Nissan can be pretty difficult.
So they want to encourage participation. They want to encourage new people from signing up. They don't want them to feel like that. Like, why bother signing up? Because there's no way I'm going to wind up getting. There's no way I'm going to get less than 17 incidents. So why even bother, right? So the community got together and asked Iracing, "Hey, can you remove the incident limit?" And they're like, "Okay," right? So is the incident limit removed to promote safer driving? I would think not, because you're encouraging new people to sign up that may not know the car that's going to self-spin, right? So, it's like they don't know. I'm not saying that they don't know what they're doing. It's just that they don't know what they're doing.
Well, and not only that, but just talking about the incident limit, and this may even tie in with the incident system in general, is that I find the 1X system and the way it ties into the incident limit a little bit inconsistent. So, generally speaking, the philosophy behind the incident system is, at least in regards to 1Xs, this is not in regards to car contacts whatsoever, and this is an issue for the roadside, which I do predominantly, and Kevin does, basically half the time.
Not really anymore.
Well, you do some.
I'm doing a lot of road.
Yeah, that's true. So the issue with the roadside is that, think about turn one. Well, first things first. Think about Spa. Think about the entire lap at Spa, and it works basically as iRacing says it does. When you put the outside edge of the, when the geometric center of your car goes over the line at Spa, you get a 1X. That's how iRacing describes it working. That's how the system works. Okay, Spa is strict generally by most people, but it does what iRacing says it does. However, go to a track like Watkins Glen, where you have the white line in the exit of turn 1, and you can run, I've done it, you can go all the way out to the wall before you actually get to the grass, before you go up into the S's, and you don't get a 1X. Think about the penultimate corner at Sebring, turn 16, Le Mans. You have a very tight S's section, and then everyone, the line you generally take, swings over to the left, which goes completely over a white line, and the line in prototypes and things like the IndyCar and some of the GT cars, hired basically, things that have a lot of downforce. You want to swing way to the left, over a white line, all 4 tires over a white line, and then back over across through the racing line. And then, the sort of incident system picks up there. Think about the last corner at Interlagos. The racing line there, you have a curb which you cannot put 4 tires off. It actually ends. And then you have a curb and sort of the weird rumble section that you can put 4 tires off that leads into the braking zone. So you have these weird sort of places where in some places it does what it says. If you put 4 tires off the quote-unquote racing surface, you get an X. But you have all these tracks where the racing surface seems to just be so loosely defined that it's impossible to get incidents when it seems like you probably should be. And then you have iRacing's most recent implementation, and I think this is how it should be done. So, the argument, like what Tony said of, in races where we do not have an incident limit, people abuse it. The easy-to-go solution is to make those 1X zones where people would be harassing and potentially abusing the incident system. There's a couple corners at Spa that you can sort of get away with this. I mean, keep in mind, this is something that I do think is a bit of an extreme. I don't think this is as common as people think it is, because when you're talking about abusing off tracks potentially go faster, even though potentially let's use Blanchimont for example at Spa. If I flat foot Blanchimont in a GT3 car, unless I'm in super sticky weather, it's generally not gonna stick, and I'll push out wide. There's actually not that much pace advantage to be found, because you're actually making your racing line so much longer, and you have to go so wide through Blanchimont. Oftentimes not quicker. But those points on the track where it might actually be advantageous, iRacing needs to do what they've done with the new system with some of their new tracks. So look at Le Mans, for example. At Le Mans, it's very difficult to actually rack up incident points unless you're just like blatantly incompetent.
So how'd that team in Neo get 1,000?
That was Mavant. Well, yes, they did, but they didn't win the race. They were quick, but they did not win the race. That was Movano in that race, which is why I said that in a Ferrari. But Le Mans, generally speaking, it's pretty difficult to rack up incidents. And just for the record, you mentioned that team that had like 600 or whatever. My team had like 9 or something, maybe more, maybe closer to 30. I can't remember the exact number, but I know we had a race. It may have been an older race than the Aston I'm thinking of, where Team Chimera car had like 8 incidents over an entire 24-hour race. So you think about Le Mans, there's a few places at Le Mans where you can go wide and potentially pick up time. Well, they're not governed by 1X's in the incident limit. They're governed by slowdown areas. It's basically being treated as cutting the track. So you think about the exit of the Porsche curves. You have that whole wide section, and then you have this fast left-hander that ends Porsche curves. And if you push wide, you don't get a 1X, you get a slowdown. Same thing with Tetra Rouge, what leads you onto the back straight at Le Mans. You go wide there, you don't get a 1X, you get a slowdown. So if the argument is we do not want people abusing the incident system and abusing the off-track system to gain speed, go through all of your tracks, and on every single corner that you think could be greatly abused, put a slowdown system in the runoff area. And just do that, and it's, I think that's more or less problem solved on that front.
And I think that on the road, the penalty should be, you get 30-second stop and hold.
I don't even think you need a stop and hold. Just get a slowdown. 5-second slowdown for pushing a little bit wide in one corner.
I'm saying for the incident limit instead of a DQ.
I don't like. I just don't think the incident limit as it sits should exist, because that's and I'm going to say it. There's it's one of the things that iRacing doesn't like us talking about on the iRacing YouTube channel, but at RaceSpot anyways, why we'll never hear anyone say it, but netcode incidents. Netcode incidents, you get a 4X where there's a car width between you and another car. It's still a 4X. And it happened to me when I got DQ'd on Friday. It's what happened to me. I had 2 netcode related 4Xs where there was basically half a car width or more between myself and someone else. And the bulk of these incidents came up at the start. The first 2 laps of the race, I had 2 netcode 4Xs. And I had a car spin in front of me, and I got a 4X from that as well. So I had 12 incidents and damage. 12 incidents from no cars that I actually hit. And I think for that reason, I don't think that drive-thrus are really valid. I think that a hit to your safety rating is a valid enough thing for people who are trying to come up, and it's a valid enough punishment for up-and-comers. However, I think a 30-second stop and hold, when you're talking about incidents that are potentially not your fault, you're not talking about someone getting a 4X. If you get a ghost 4X and you're trying to come up to the system, it's going to hurt your safety rating a little bit, but it's not going to completely ruin your experience if you're talking about new drivers. And the last thing you want as someone who's a quote-unquote new driver is to have someone get a bunch of ghost 4Xs, say, okay, here, go through, you now have to do a drive-through. I wouldn't mind the drive-through system. I think that drive-thrus, if done properly, could work. The problem is I don't see there any way that you could actually make a drive-through system work with an automated system. I think you need live admins, and that's not something iRacing should be shooting for, to have live administrators in every single race. It's too expensive, and people think, get more members on iRacing. We'd have live admins in every race. If they're making that much money, well, no, because then if you have more people online racing, that means there's more servers. That means you then need, it's kind of like the rocket fuel equation. Every little bit of weight you add in fuel, you need more fuel to lift the weight of that fuel up. It's sort of an potentially unreachable goal, in my opinion, to have admins in every race. So, I mean, on that front, my opinion is, just get rid of the incident limit, because it doesn't get rid of dirty drivers, and it doesn't punish off tracks correctly. There's a better way to punish off tracks for them being abused that's already been put into the sim. And in terms of just dealing with dirty drivers, that's what the protest system is for, and the protests need to be more strict.
Okay, well, now it's time to go to a segment that we had in episode 1 that I thought would be a weekly segment, and we haven't had it since episode 1.
It's time for Real Dudes who get paid to drive real cars.
All right, Real Dudes, Real Cars, where we talk about real dudes driving real cars and how it might relate to us driving fake cars. Some news in global rallycross, Randy, that it really affects you as a broadcaster for the Dirt Rallycross Championship.
Actually, it doesn't.
Well, it affects. I mean, yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
But it does, because
But it doesn't.
But it does, because
But I have word from the higher ups.
I'm not saying your series is going to be canceled. I'm saying that if a series was running in real life, right, that was super cool, and somebody turned on to NBC and went, "Wow, that's really cool." And then they searched YouTube for the Red Bull, right, and then they stumbled upon something in sim racing, right? Now that's gone. So it does. Okay, it's not okay. Explain
Red Bull
then.
Global Rallycross is still sanctioning the iRacing World Championship.
Okay, but nobody is going to find Red Bull Global Rallycross anymore, because that's what I'm saying.
Perhaps, but
okay, let's explain to the people who are living in a cave. I'll let you do it, Randy. What happened?
Okay, so this has been something that's kind of been slow burning, and I sort of heard some of the rumors of this a few weeks ago. But Red Bull Global Rallycross is in trouble, and there's no other way to put it. There's no other nicer way to say it. Anyone that I think can read between the lines should have picked up on this a little bit sooner. So in the last few months, Red Bull Global Rallycross have been doing some interesting things. In terms of, for those who are unaware of Rallycross, the top level cars, what everyone likes to watch, what everyone likes to race, they're called the supercar class. The Fiesta, the Volkswagen that we have, there's the Volkswagen Polo that also races in Europe. There's an Audi. There's I think a handful of other cars. I think there's 6. There's a Civic that runs that raced in North America. That's what Mitchell de Jong drove. There's also the Subarus with the likes of Patrick Sandell drove as well. Those cars are universally what is run. They are built to the same spec. At the close of 2017 season, Red Bull Global Rallycross announced that they would be getting away from this class and moving to what they called Supercar Lights. Excuse me, no, take that back. It was the GRC Gold class, and it was sort of this universal-looking car. It's basically a Ford Fiesta that's been sort of bodged to not look exactly like a Ford Fiesta, but it's obviously a Ford Fiesta. What that car actually is a GRC Lights car, which is the equivalent of an Xfinity Series car. It's a feeder series car, the second tier level professional rallycross car that they have essentially done some upgrades to make it the top level class. And they said, this is what our drivers are going to be racing. And a lot of people were scratching their heads because teams don't want to run that car, drivers don't want to drive that car, fans don't want to watch that car. It is sort of like, okay, question mark. There was this sort of, semi-side announcement that was done around the same time. But we're going to, in 2019, we're going to be, unveiling our platinum class. And there was really no explanation on that. We were like, okay, I guess we'll wait till 2019. So they basically introduced a spec series with front-wheel drive, less horsepower, much less fun. And it's a month or so ago, things are still going. They announced their Polaris thing, and the FIA American Rallycross Championship was announced, and Subaru and Volkswagen both said we were going to be running this championship full time, and that raised a couple eyebrows because Volkswagen is and everyone's going to be, let the laughter commence. Godspeed and Tanner Faust, and then you have the Subaru team as well, moving over. So Pat Sindel, like I said, moving over to that, and that raised a couple eyebrows because those are the only factory efforts that still really remain within Red Bull Global Rallycross. Well, announcement came down today that one of the first round of that championship, I actually can't remember the name of the track off the top of my head, but they announced that they got received word from Red Bull Global Rallycross that they would be ceasing operations in 2018. And with that, there has been just a flurry of information that has just like come out. There's been people talking about news has come out about a lawsuit that's going on between Colin Dine, who's the CEO of GRC. There's one between them and some drivers that haven't gotten paid. A couple racetracks said that they haven't gotten paid. There's been a couple, like I said, drivers. There's been teams that there's been issue of money getting, one way or another. There's been issues with all sorts of stuff along those lines. So there's a flurry of lawsuits. There's word the series is getting ready to fold, but plans to start again in 2019. And, there was this spec class that they apparently said they were going to, but now they're not going to because they're obviously ceasing operations in 2018. So basically, all this comes down to GRC in 2018 is not going to be a thing. And I don't know, I'm not a lawyer the same way you are, Kev. And I kind of hate to say it as someone who's going to be working the World Championship, but I sort of look at this and, I sort of read between the legal lines, and it does not look good.
No, that's an understatement. Especially if they have unpaid bills, and they're going to be in a lawsuit with the city of Detroit.
Yeah, the city of Detroit. So that's another. For those who aren't aware of that, they ran a race at Belle Isle. They claim that they had a deal with the state of Michigan that they would shut down Belle Isle Park, that people couldn't just get into the race for free, and they claim that Michigan didn't do so. And because of that, they lost an immense amount of entry fee, which, let's be honest, is a potential legitimate complaint. There's also other complaints, and the fact that there's 3 or 4 lawsuits going up against on Colin Dine right now.
Yeah.
It's not a good look. Now for something I talked about near the top of the show or the segment, when Kevin first mentioned this, we have a couple people. We have a RaceBot commentators group. And there is an iRacing staff member in there. I will not say who it is, for their own sake. But, I asked them, and I asked Hugo and Will to get in contact with the people at the office. We could get an explanation on what in the world's going on, because obviously if I'm going to be producing, 1, I have Dirt Night, which has Rallycross on it right now, and 2, I'm going to be doing the World Championship. How we're going forward. Is Red Bull GRC still going to be the sanctioning body or sponsor or whatever? What's the current plan? As far as we're concerned, there is no change with who is representing and who is the sponsor of the 2018 iRacing Red Bull GRC World Championship Series. There's no change there. So they're still putting that on. Seems like that's still the plan. I'm not sure what the long-term effects of this could be, because obviously if iRacing, I think, is sort of in a weird place right now where if this series goes away, how long does their deal with Red Bull and GRC last? If they have sort of an exclusivity deal,
it doesn't last.
Yeah, well, that potentially doesn't last. What's if the series still sort of quote unquote?
Well, there's
exists,
no reason. I don't know if Rallycross is a copyrighted term. It can't be.
No, Rallycross is not.
Right. So there's no reason why iRacing can't have the Rallycross World Championship, even sponsored by.
No.
Let's just throw it out. Peak.
That's not what I mean. What I mean is in terms of getting new content, especially in terms of circuits and tracks. So where I see a potential,
there's your plane.
As Gillespie Field thing. By the way, on that topic, something the other day took off super low and super hot because it's the loudest plane that's not a B-17 I've heard take off in a while. It woke me up. But back to my point. I'm not when I think of that, my immediate inclination is the FIA World Rallycross Championship and the America's Rallycross Championship that they're starting up. So you're looking at two potential competitors for Red Bull GRC. If Red Bull GRC still exists in sort of this quasi-existing state that they seem to be doing so for 2018, is there potential repercussions to iRacing scanning content that represents that FIA series in the United States and the World Rallycross series in Europe? I mean, it's sort of from the sound of everything, Red Bull GRC. It isn't going away. It isn't totally dying. It's just not operating in 2018. Whether or not that'll change in the next 1 to 2 years remains to be seen. But if it remains in this quasi-weird phase, couldn't there not be, and now you're being a lawyer, you could potentially, expand on this, could there not be potential legal holdups to iRacing expanding the rallycross content? Especially with think about a manufacturer like Subaru. Right now, Red Bull GRC is getting sued, is suing Subaru of America, I believe is what it was, the technical words in the document. I remember I saw it somewhere on Twitter, but I forgot they're suing the Subaru team that left them to go run in the FIA America's Championship. But we're getting that Subaru in iRacing. We know that it's on the way. So
maybe not anymore.
No, it already is. Like, it's in development.
Yeah, but maybe not anymore.
Well, yeah, that's my point. It's like it's such a weird situation for iRacing that it's been the joke on the forums. It's the biggest, most prominent example of the iRacing curse ever. Right.
Yeah. To getting into the legal ramifications, you have to know what iRacing's contract is. But so let's just talk about scanning tracks right now. Aren't they making up tracks right now as it is? Like the Sonoma track we just got, that's not a real track. They just made that up. Right?
Well,
or am I wrong on that?
The explanation that I'm aware of is that that they were sort of like, from what I understand, Red Bull was actually sort of thinking about using the sim as a way to come up with actual layouts in real life. However, you are right. Sonoma is a completely fictional track. Whether or not they were thinking of racing there, I don't know. The only track we have, the only two tracks we have that are actually real circuits are the Daytona Short layout. That was a Red Bull Global Rallycross round, and the one at Indianapolis Raceway Park or Lucas Oil Speedway.
Oh, really? The Iowa one's not real?
Yeah, the Iowa one is not real.
I didn't know that.
The Daytona Long one is not real. Phoenix one is not real. I mean, and that's on the old Phoenix. Yeah. On the old Phoenix.
Well, that's what.
And the Sonoma one is not real.
So you shouldn't have to worry about that. But it's a question of like, is it worth it for them to make another global rallycross track?
But for example, Coda just put in an actual permanent rallycross circuit. It uses part of the. So there's a couple. They converted a couple access roads into a rallycross layout. And they added a jump. It takes part in the sort of the slower sector of the track where you have the stadium section. And that's going to be, that's sort of launched alongside the FIA Championship. So we'll wind up getting it. Just how camel cars are spelled with spelled differently. Yeah, but you're talking about 30 years separation versus ongoing lawsuits and a series that still exists in a quasi state of existence.
You call it the Bull Red Rallycross.
No. Well,
what I mean? It'll be fine.
But is there not potential ramifications of the FIA as well? So, for example, all the tracks that we have, all the rallycross tracks we have, the walls, and there's like the timing beacons, that they all get this Red Bull sponsorship. How do you at iRacing get this FIA Coda rallycross track and then put Red Bull stuff on it? Surely the FIA and the America's Rallycross Championship would be like, no.
Well, I don't know. You're talking.
It's such a weird situation.
Us as viewers can't, or players don't know what the contracts say. So
right, it just seems like a potential
you just don't.
Legal
I don't understand. I really don't. I don't think there's any way that NASCAR stopped. We're talking the infancy of iRacing, okay? There's no way that NASCAR said, I'm going to stop you from scanning Phoenix. You know, it just never happened, right? So I can't see the FIA saying we're going to stop you from scanning the COTA track, right? You know, that's not going to happen, right? Because now COTA might say, we don't want to piss off our partners in the FIA, so we're not going to let you. That's a different thing. But there's got to be iRacing had to see this coming. The contract has to say like, in we are allowed to put your logos in there in perpetuity. I mean, it's got to say that. Perpetuity means forever. For those of you that don't know. So I mean, it has to say that.
No, I'm not saying,
because that would be ridiculous. The title sponsor changes next year to Monster, and they have to rescan every track.
Well,
that's not happening.
I don't necessarily mean in forever. What I mean is, right now it's still a pretty new partnership. You're talking 6 months, and with Red Bull,
Red Bull seems to be in supportive of it. I mean, they're sponsoring the global, and it's all over their news, all over their Twitter feed.
Right. But I'm not saying in forever. Red Bull GRC would have complete control. But if for the period of time, the Red Bull GRC is going to be in this weird place for the next year, where it's not potentially doing anything outside of our iRacing World Championship. No, it's I don't know. I just
maybe it's a good opportunity. Maybe
it could be.
Maybe Red Bull. I mean, we're not talking these amounts we're talking about are not serious money. 20,000 here, 20,000 there. So they're owed to these tracks and stuff like that. Maybe Red Bull says, you know what, we'll just buy out the whole thing, and we'll turn it into our esport. This is now the Red Bull esport. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, but at the same time, if that amount of money isn't a big deal, why
hasn't it been done already? I know.
Yeah, why hasn't it been done?
Well,
already?
You can see Red Bull say, "Well, that's not my problem." But anyway, yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move on to this next topic, which I'm just going to call drama. Drama. Boy, we've had our share of drama. This show.
It's been a drama-full. Yeah, the incident limit. Now you got Red Bull GRC.
Not only this episode though, but the whole RutgersKev show. It's just been just drama. And hey, controversy creates cash. So we've had some drama. I'm gonna take it from here, Randy. Okay. So we had some drama today, this week in the forums. Okay. So Tyler Hudson is the community manager for iRacing. He's also an experienced sim racer. He's also the former champion of the Peak Antifreeze series. Okay, so he obviously knows what he's doing. He won $10,000 racing NASCAR.
He recently won a race in a dirt late model as well.
that was a $1,000 to win.
He did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I watched it. Yep. He did not have a very good qualifying, and he still basically whooped him. But again, okay, well, that's another topic. I honestly, I get a little. He obviously won it fair and square, okay, but it's a little sketchy. It's sketchy when a guy that works for iRacing wins. That's all. It gives off a negative impression.
I don't think so.
I'm not saying anything nefarious happened. Okay, but I'm saying for an outside viewer, it gives off a negative. It's the same way.
This isn't what your drama is about, but I have seen people say that. But but those views are ludicrous.
But I would agree. I would agree. But it's the same way that somebody goes like, oh, that guy's a beta tester, so he has a advantage. That kind of thing. Okay. But that ties into what I'm going to talk about in general about Mr. Hudson as a community manager, and it goes back to what I said earlier about the empty box comment. Okay, it's like, Tyler, in my opinion, and I'm just a streamer, I'm just a member of iRacing for 10 years, I don't know anything else. In my opinion, Tyler needs to take a step back and go, and put on his community manager hat, which is his job, as opposed to his racer hat. Okay, because he's putting on his racer hat a little bit too much. Okay, you saw what happened. We talked about a couple episodes ago what happened in the Pro Series, where
Was a Pro Series where he raced and he knocked a guy out that could have made top split. Okay, so because that's him putting on his racer hat. Okay, and he's perfectly entitled to race. And in fact, maybe he should race. Okay, but he needs to take a step back and go, is what I'm doing here something that a community manager should do? Okay, so I'm going to show you a video right now, and this is, I guess I have to give you the background. Okay, this is a B-fixed race at Bristol. They had a long green flag run, and they're going to have a one-lap shootout. Okay, because I had a long green flag run, everybody pitted for tires except Tyler. So this is the only laps that Tyler led were the laps that were under caution. He basically figured, track position is important. It's a one-lap shootout. I'm not going to win if I take tires. I'm going to stay out. So what happens is this on the restart. There's no sound, by the way. All right, I'm going to show it again. That's Tyler on the inside. Okay, so he lays back, which may be something that people do. I personally haven't seen it. Maybe people do lay back on the start so they can get a clear view of the pace car. Excuse me a second. Okay, so maybe they do lean back on the start to get a cleared view of the pace car. I'm not sure, but okay, that would be, and he's the pole sitter. He could basically do anything he wants, right? So the rule in iRacing is that the leader controls the start, but you can't jump the start. You have to go after the pace car completely leaves the racing surface. Okay, so as you see here on the video, Tyler is anticipating the pace car going, and he clearly goes before the pace car has even begun to turn on the pit road. Okay, then he realizes, oh, I went too early, and he kind of backs off a little bit, and then he like within 1 second realizes, well, I got to go now, so he just goes, right? Now again, this is a one-lap shootout to win a B-fixed race. There's nothing on the line here, okay? And this is the community manager that works for iRacing doing this, okay? So Tyler obviously knows he's on old tires. He knows he has to get a good start, and he anticipated when the pace car was going to go off, and he jumped the start. But he didn't get a black flag or anything. Let's put that, okay? So that's something that could be protested for somebody who jumped in the start. So everybody else that's in that race, especially one person, basically played cheeky on the forums. So you cannot call out anybody specifically on the forums. You can't say X member wrecked me, so X member is bad, right? But you can say this member, check out this video of this guy wrecking me. As long as you don't have the name of the person, then it's okay, because then it's like a clip video. Okay, so people were cheeky on the forums. Somebody posted, I would request a response from staff on this. Is it okay to lay back on the start and go before the pace car leaves the racing surface? I would request a response from staff on this. They wrote that knowing it was a member from staff that jumped the start, right? So people started to respond, not knowing all the details. They go like, well, you can protest it. It's against the sporting code, blah, blah, blah. Tyler then responds, if you lay back and purposely jump the start, that's protestable. If somebody just makes an error in judgment by a split second, then it's a mistake, as in this case. Then he locks the thread. I was following it at the time, and I was like, before he locked it, I was like, how does he know it's this case? Like, that's weird. Like, well, then the video got posted, which you just saw, and it's Tyler, right? So Tyler locked a thread of the forums talking about him jumping the start. So then that wasn't going to work. So the same guy posted another thread and says, was there a premature lock on this thread? I would really like a response from staff. And then he posted the video, which you just saw. Now it didn't have anybody's name, but we all know that's Tyler Hudson's paint scheme. And it would be like, I would really like a response from staff. Is this okay? And then he posts the video of Tyler jumping the start. Tyler again responds in a cheeky response without saying it's me or owning up to it. Then by post 20 of the thread, he says, oh, and by the way, it's me, and here's what happened. It was a one-lap shootout. I knew I had to go, and I went too early. What he didn't say was sorry, right? He just said, I went too early, things happen. If you want to protest me, protest me. That's basically what he said. This is the community manager for iRacing. How about you just don't cut it so close where you're giving everything a bad name? How about you take your racing hat off for a second and you act like a community manager? And if you have your racing hat on and you drive over your head by jumping the start, own up to it. Just say, hey, my bad. I broke the sporting code, guys. I went before the pace car left the racing service. I accept whatever punishment you would give me, just like if I was any other member of iRacing. The cheekiness and just the overall, games that he's playing by locking the thread and then not responding the first time by admitting it's him is just I don't know. And again, it's an honest mistake, and he probably shouldn't be called out on it. He only got called out on it because he's Tyler Hudson. But you are a community manager. The same way when I'm streaming, I know that I can't do anything over the top bad because the microscope's on me. This is the same thing I talked about last episode with a member from another streaming organization that went crazy, and I played you the audio last week. When you're a streamer, you have a certain microscope on you, and you need to act accordingly. And when you're the community manager for iRacing, you need to uphold the community standards, and you need to think a little bit before you act. Okay, especially when you're out there racing, because you're out there racing as a member of staff. Nim Cross has raced, and Nim Cross has overdrove a corner and wrecked somebody. Okay, not on purpose. Okay, but I can't fathom an incident where it would even cross Nim Cross's mind to cut it as close as what Tyler Hudson just did right there. Because Nim knows that when he's on the track, like, all eyes are on him. If Nim, in the same way where if Nim's in your race, you better not be dropping F-bombs in voice chat because you'll be removed, which just happened a couple weeks ago. There's a bunch of Twitch clips on that.
I've seen that happen a couple of times. It always, I've been in I remember broadcasting a race where that happened, and I started laughing.
Yeah,
I just thought it was the greatest thing ever.
And just imagine like Nim Cross getting frustrated on somebody and go, "You effing a-hole," Oh, and then then you would have Nim Cross say like, "Oh," in the forums like, "Oh, it was a momentary lapse of judgment. I accept any punishment." No, Nim Cross would never do that because Nim Cross knows that if he did that, he may even get fired. I don't know, but because he's the guy who has to be he's the guy who has to be held to a certain standard because he's the guy that handles all the protests, right? Tyler Hudson needs to realize what he is as the community manager and shouldn't be casually posting on Empty Boxes videos that if somebody reaches the incident limit, which is high enough, then they deserve to be DQ'd, smiley face. I don't know if he was kidding, if he was trolling or what, but that's not something that a community manager should be posting. And a community manager should maybe think twice before, one, staying out on old tires in a beef fixed race that doesn't mean anything, and two, laying back and trying to time the start to the absolute milliseconds so that you can win the race, because all you're doing is setting yourself up for trouble. The same way where if I, as a streamer with 100 viewers, laid back and then jumped the start, I would get called out on it too. Okay, that's all I have to say about that. All right, so we're gonna Randy's did a segment and he's had it in the bag for weeks, and we haven't played it because, I'm just a bad host, I guess. But I really love Randy's theme song, so we're just gonna do it right now.
It's Chinworth, it's Chin out. How do you say his name? Who knows? Who cares? But this is his part of the show. Hello, everyone. It's Randy with the RutgersKev Show, and here I'm going to give you a nice little sort of feature that I think is really nifty that's in the new 2018 Season 2 build. So you can see you have on your screen an image of a Thrustmaster R383 Sparco Rally wheel rim. It's I just got it, a brand new wheel rim. Very interesting, very high quality. I dig it a lot. Thrustmaster, you're welcome for the plug. Anyways, but that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is this new button mapping update that's very, very nifty and very useful. Now, if you're anything like me, you've ended up in a situation where you put most of your useful things as buttons on your wheel. You'll have a way to quickly access your primary black box. So for me, example, the top right button, that black circular button, that to me is my F3 black box. That's sort of my home. You'll have a way to talk to your teammates, either in sim or over a VoIP service such as, TeamSpeak or Vent, whatever that is. You'll have a button bound for that. You'll have crucial in-car adjustments such as, brake bias, traction control, weight jacker if you're an IndyCar person, potentially even, different engine map settings. And you'll have all this stuff, and you'll get most of the primary stuff, and then you'll have one or two buttons that you really don't know what to do with. And I was in the very similar situation where I had most of the common buttons, and there was a couple buttons that was pretty much always unbound on my wheel that I never really knew what to do with, and so they just remained unbound. However, with that's probably going to change, and one of those buttons will come up with a brand new nifty feature. So in the build, what they have added is the ability to do multi-button combinations. So essentially, if you push two buttons, those two buttons will do a different command than if you just push one of them. And now that's really, really nifty, because obviously that gives you a lot of options in terms of what you can do. The best way to utilize it, in my opinion, though, is so let's say on the top right, you see that black button and the red button near the top right of the wheel, those upper two most buttons. What I do not think you should do is make it so that if you just click both of those in at the same time, that is an instance if both of those two buttons have individual commands. So if the red button does one thing and the black button does another, and then pushing them both then combined does something different, that's likely not what you're going to want to be using this. So what you should do, this is my opinion on how you should set this up. So let's take a button that would normally, in your case, be unbound. So as an example, because I've only just gotten this wheel, I've not 100% settled on my mapping situation yet. Let's say the white button on the bottom left corner of the wheel. Let's say that button is not bound to anything and it was unused. What you should essentially do is turn that button into a shift key or a control key on a keyboard. So obviously, if you've ever used a keyboard, if you type keys, like the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all those, if you press shift and hit those buttons, those keys do a different thing. Essentially, turn one of those into a shift key, and then essentially you can make all of your other buttons do different things. So for example, on mine, top F3 is my primary black box. That will likely go to a full tire strategy setup. So I would hold that white button down and then click that black button in the top right corner, and that could be just a default pit box strategy, which you can do with some of the macros. In the top left of this wheel, that's not technically a button. I mean, it is a button because you can click that in. It's actually a hat switch, so you can do like left and right. It's basically a D-pad. So what I'm going to do, even though I don't do as much NASCAR stuff, is my shift key, or shift button, I should say, that white one on the bottom left. If I click left on the D-pad, it'll take left side tires only. Right will be right side tires only. Up and down will be fuel levels. So if I want to add more fuel, I click up. If I want to add less fuel, I click down until I get to the number I want. Very, very good option. Haven't quite really sorted this out. Couple other things, though, on my wheel, and these are actually not on the face of the wheel itself. It's on my Thrustmaster TX base. There's actually two function buttons on the right-hand side that I use for brake bias. What I'm going to end up doing is that if I hold in the function button, for cars that have ABS, those are going to actually change ABS as well. So this is a nifty little feature that essentially doubles the amount of buttons and the amount of options that you have on a wheel. And instead of having only one or two vague abilities, you can essentially bind your entire wheel to a bunch of vague stuff. It's super awesome feature, super cool thing. Shout outs to iRacing for adding it in. I really dig it.
Oh, look here.
Now look here, me bucko.
All right, here's another segment we had in week 1, which I intended to be a weekly segment on the show. We haven't had it since episode 1. I wanted to direct your attention to Steve Ray's new website, virtual motorsportracing.com. No HTTP, just virtualmotorsportracing.com. Very, very new website. But what he's doing is he's saying it's the all-in-one website for the virtual motorsports community. Always a hard word for me to say. So, but anyway, he's having leagues. So you just highlight leagues on his website. It brings up, certain leagues, and anybody who has a league can just message Steve and get your league on here. So the top one is the Race for Sports Fair Chance, which is actually being broadcasted by RaceSpot. And it gives you like a little write-up about them and a link to their league page and a link to their thread in the iRacing forums. It also has live streamers. And look at that, RutgersKev is on there. Boy, I wonder how I knew about this. Right? So if you go to live streamers and you drops down the pull-down list, okay, and then you could pick the one you want, and it gives them a little write-up about the channel, and it gives you the links to the show. I mean, I think pretty cool, right? So anybody can join this site by basically just messaging Steve Ray in the forums. You just message him and then say, hey, I would like to be on your website listed. Okay, so it's in private league and hosted racing under new website. Also, Steve Ray. Oops, I hit the wrong thing. He posted it in a bunch of places, but new website for private builders in the hardware section. This is the website in Spec Racer Ford. Anyway, I thought that was a cool thing. I thought that, another person reaching out, doing, and he's putting in work and he's not asking for anything really in return. And again, it's a pretty simple website. I'd like to see how this one goes. So that's virtualmotorsportsracing.com. Have a comment on this video you want played on the next episode of the Rutgers Kev Show? Call the show. 732-965-8773. Or, if you live outside the U.S., or you just have a phobia of the phone, send an audio file to the RutgersKevShow@gmail.com. And that's my show. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and more importantly, share. Let's grow.
That's the end of my show. Donk.